G'day friends, welcome to our channel and welcome to this quick video on fixing some erosion issues that if you've been following our channel for a while, you might have seen that this table drain behind me got washed out a few months ago. So now we're finally getting around to fixing it. Alright, that's a lot of erosion. But the more interesting thing than fixing it is some of the characteristics that I've observed over the last few months that I didn't expect to happen in this drain. So the way this drain eroded, I've never observed a drain being eroded for months on end. So there's some really interesting things that I learned that I wanted to share with you guys. And first of all, it is that this section here has been untouched. I haven't done any work to it just then, and it still is generally at the same level that it was when we first built it. So that's interesting point number one, that flat surfaces have minimal susceptibility to erosion. It generally won't damage it much. The problem only really started to happen down there when the water changed from flowing on a flat surface to downslope. So that's interesting fact number one. If you're just digging out a drain that's flat, the impact is going to be minor. This has been months and it's still looking generally good. The second really interesting thing that I learned is that if you look at the drain from this perspective here, when we first dug it, it was a very distinct V and the edges were quite steep. But what's ended up happening now with rainwater coming in from the edges is that the edges have become more smooth and the drain is generally wider now, which I actually like because as opposed to when it was real steep, having it so smooth now means that when it's nice and dry, we can drive through here. So that's good. That's something I didn't know, that generally nature will smooth out the edges of any earthworks that you do. And now for the main lesson here, it's that when you're digging out a drain and it's all just dirt, generally the problems only start to happen at the end of the drain. So believe it or not, this bit of erosion here progressed gradually and all started over here. So for a while the surface here was unscathed, and only when the water started to speed up did this start to happen. So if we look down over there, minimal problems. If we look over here, we've lost quite a bit of dirt, and that's because the water was flowing faster. So if I was to build this drain again, I would probably only have focused on this area with the rocks, only put rocks here so that the most vulnerable area is secured, and then the erosion would never have progressed this way, and it would have taken less effort to fix later down the track. But here we are, we're doing all this stuff for the first time, so some very interesting lessons here, and I'll carry a couple of dirt loads with you guys and then we'll skip straight to the end result. So here we are at this dirt pile. Taking a nice big chunk of dirt. And we're just dumping it in. And this is a tool that I've never seen before until we moved off grid, but it's very handy for getting some compaction done on a small scale. So generally what we've got here is clay, which means that the chunks are pretty hard and I can't really smooth it out with a rake. But because it's still got a good amount of moisture in it, what I can do is compact it into shape so it's flexible, just like doing a bit of pottery. And that's essentially what I've done so far. So I might add a bit of water to that as I go and compact it some more, but generally the surface is starting to be pretty smooth, pretty well compacted, and once the rocks goes in, it's never getting washed out again. And for anybody wondering how we're going about getting the water out of the drain, well, that's kind of happening naturally there. So all that we're doing here is we're pushing the water out with our clay. So once the clay goes in, we're displacing the water. And look at that, getting pretty close now to the end. Bit of a messy job, this one. Wet clay gets stuck to everything. It's beauty. Alright guys, welcome back. The sun is now setting, and believe it or not, we finally got enough dirt to patch all of this erosion stuff up. Roof's is having a good itch, and check out our drain now, looking flash. And here's the entryway into the dam. It's a pretty lovely afternoon out here. And so another thing to be mindful of when building drains, of course, obviously, is to ensure that the slope is going that way. So, the bubble's on the left hand side, which means slope is pointed to the right. Check this spot here. That's a slight slope to the right again. Over here we got a slight slope yet again, so looking pretty good. But difficult thing about changing the slope is over here we start to slope back towards the pond slightly. Sloping that way. So we finished the section from basically here to there. So now it's time to layer on the rocks. That's our friend Willie the wagtail. So there you have it, guys. The drain is looking better than ever, and it's time to put some rocks in. Alright, so here we've got our rocks. Now the job is to get them from over here over there, so I think I'm just going to throw them over. And by the way, what I meant about the slope being correct from where Rufus is basically to there, that's because if there's a change that happens anywhere, obviously that slope has to now be tracked back all the way over there, which takes a lot of time. But we might have some rain tomorrow, so I want to make sure that the most important section is all sealed up, and that's the one that we're going to be working on now. So let's see how this goes. Rock number one. It's a big milestone, first rock. So these aren't falling all the way to the bottom, by the way. There's clay there. So we want to make sure that there's still some rocks a little bit down there for if the level of the dam drops a little bit. We don't want that part to be getting washed away all over again. So we're going to put quite a few rocks here because this is the worst spot. And then going down over that way, we don't have to go quite as thick, especially because dirt will make its way in between the rocks. All the silt will get stuck there, and then eventually grass and all kinds of things will be growing between the rocks. And the other thing is we want to make sure we put all the big chunky ones on this side, because over here the flow of water is going to be pretty hectic, and the smaller rocks might get washed away unless they have the bigger rocks holding them in place. Alright guys, welcome back. Little did I expect that this project would take up the entire weekend, but we're now finally starting to get somewhere, so I'll show you where I'm up to. That pile of rocks over there ended up being nowhere near enough. I've been carrying rocks with this wheelbarrow from about 100 meters away, so that's partially why the project is taking so long. But in terms of actually stacking the rocks, that has been pretty enjoyable actually, because it's a bit of an artistic expression here, especially in this apron bit here, stacking them a bit like a mosaic to make sure they all fit together nicely. And the clay was a bit squishy, so I stomped the rocks in, so now they're nice and sturdy. Should be held in place really well. And so this is where we're up to so far. Of course, the section of rocks in there is a bit more narrow because as the water comes out of this passage, it's likely going to spread out like so. So I've made the apron a bit wider than the main passage, and this is our progress so far. And after putting down the bigger rocks, I've added in some smaller rocks too, and now I'm just kind of kicking them into place to fill in all the gaps. So we've still got a fair bit to go, but starting to look pretty awesome. And by the way, that's the main section that was getting eroded away, which is now fixed. So even if it rained right now, this section here isn't going to be damaged too bad. This was the main area of concern, and it's all good now. But it's not an easy job. I wish we had a little excavator here to do this. That's partially why I've been putting it off for so long, and it's pretty exciting to see it coming together now. So next time there's some heavy rains, I'm no longer going to be thinking, oh no, the drain's going to get washed out. I'd say this is going to last a pretty long time, and eventually all of the gaps will probably be filled in with silt or dirt that washes in, and there's going to be all kinds of grasses growing through them, so they won't be going anywhere. Alright, it's now rained right after I finished that front section of the drain, and we can see it's full of water. Now instead of washing the dirt away, the water is just slowly trickling through. And after fixing our drain, I couldn't help but notice that the drain at the local park also had some work done to it. And just like in our example, the builders here also left that flat section as just dirt with no extra erosion control measures other than waiting for the grass to make its way in there, or in other words, just letting nature do its thing.